Yeah, I noticed there was one over on Rumble that I'm going to have to probably, it was just,
I screwed up. Go ahead. Say it.
yeah, well, I hate to say it, but can I tell you this? Can I
Sure.
brag about something?
Sure.
It is 76 degrees and I have the windows open. It has been 74 yesterday, 73 yesterday, day before that. May not bring for very festive Christmassy feeling, but oh my God, I'm loving it.
It does if you're in Florida.
Well,
I mean,
up
we
here,
we literally, yeah, we literally could be in the pool.
Oh, what a Christmas miracle is what this is. We're supposed to go through Sunday. Oh my God.
Yeah, next Tuesday it's supposed to be cold in the morning, but 70 in the afternoon. So I was literally just reading out on the back deck in the sun, um, eating the remainder of our prime rib um, from yesterday. So we can go the full 2 hours today. I'm not starving.
Yay!
All right.
The turkey fan's still hitting me from the turkey, so.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're snoring, it's not me.
I did not eat the turkey. We had a turkey. I didn't eat any of it. All right. So where we left off on Wednesday with the San Joaquino savings and loan, and basically the report that had been written about it. Let me grab Stellar up here. And basically, it said that the report finally concluded that San Joaquino is an institution which is out of control and at the mercy of Southmark. And Southmark, for those of you who haven't seen the whole series, was the place where the CIA and the Mafia stashed all of their property investments that were upside down. So, San Joaquino had grown rapidly after Southmark bought it in October of 1983, in part because of the brokered deposits it solicited. And again, brokered deposits are people who have millions of dollars at their disposal, to include the pension funds of many unions, where they would deposit them, and then they, the depositor, got to dictate who took loans out on their deposit. So if the CIA or the Mafia was depositing money in a bank, then they got to dictate who got the loans from that money. So some of these deposits came from Mario Renda, who, of course, had connections to the Mafia. He had a special arrangement with San Joaquino to pay premium interest rates on deposits that he brought into the savings and loan. San Joaquino, with assets of more than $3 billion, was ultimately taken over by the feds in 1990 at an estimated cost of $1.6 billion to us, the taxpayers. San Joaquino failed primarily because of the $1 billion or so in loans and investments that Southmark made through gross, according to the regulators, into bankruptcy filings in the Southmark bankruptcy, who also went bankrupt because most of the real estate property that they had acquired was upside down. They kind of just parked it there. Among the investments was $50 million to purchase Herman Beebe, the mobster's nursing home in chain of nursing homes in 1984 and 85, while Beebe was under criminal indictment. They let him continue doing business, even though he was under indictment for doing that same business. Part of the deal involved issuing Southmark preferred stock to Beebe's holding company. According to Dale Anderson, who was Beebe's right-hand man, said that he and Beebe dealt primarily with Gross, Grose, on the details of their transactions with Southmark and San Joaquino. Not only did Southmark deal with Beebe and the late mobster lawyer Morris Schenker, but testimony before the Nevada Gaming Board revealed that Gross was involved in negotiating a $5 million Southmark loan for the purchase of a Nevada casino by Harry Wood, a reputed organized crime associate from Shreveport, Louisiana, which just coincidentally happens to be where BB lives as well. Wood worked as basically a gopher for Schenker and would arrange trips to Schenker's Dunes Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Gross also reportedly arranged Las Vegas trips for San Joaquino customers, the elite customers, not you and me. In January 1985, there was a memo to Gross. Southmark chairman Gene Phillips told Gross to proceed with a almost $500,000 loan through San Joaquino for 4 individuals: Bobby Lutz, William Kennedy Jr., David Weiss, and Charles Restagno. According to a federal examination report, this loan was for chartering a new bank, but instead it was used to pay off an overdraft at another financial institution for the purpose of avoiding criminal liability. It also noted that the documents used in the loan had been altered. Wise was an associate of BB's and is named in several instances in the 1985 Comptroller of the Currency report on Herman Beebe, the mobster. Kennedy is also named in that report, which states that in 1975, Kennedy was barred from security business by the SEC because of his participation in stock manipulations. Other loans from San Joaquino that were outstanding included a $17 million loan to Carroll Kelly, secured by his Continental savings stocks. This loan had been transferred from Michener's Allied Bank and guaranteed by Herman Beebe, the mobster. A $17 million loan to William King that had been secured by stock at Title USA Insurance Company. This loan to the Houston attorney who controlled several savings and loan was arranged by Herman Beebe. He got a commission of almost $500,000. Art Leiser, Leiser, the retired Texas Savings and Loan Department chief examiner, said that after all of Beebe's deals at San Joaquino, he was told by a top San Joaquino official that Beebe and his Louisiana group were basically running the savings and loan. Leister said that when he first noticed Gross's activity at San Joaquino, he asked people there about him. Nobody seemed to know anything about him. A third loan for $32 million to a group headed by Thomas Gaubert, Gaubert, who controlled Independent American Savings. The loan was a second mortgage on the Trophy Club outside of Dallas. This loan was made in 1985, the same year that Gaubert placed Gross on the board of directors of his company, Telecom. Gaubert had bought with a loan from Sunbelt Savings. So this is that round robin again. Borrow money from here, put it in here, then it gets deposited as brokered deposits, and then you dictate where that money goes after that to your mobster and CIA buddies. Another loan, $76 million to a partnership led by Sunbelt Savings chairman Ed McBurney. The 1985 Federal Examination Report stated that $21.5 million of that loan was substandard, meaning that the collateral that was placed against it was bogus. A 1988 lawsuit filed against McBurney and other Sunbelt insiders state that Gross handled these loans for San Joaquino. On the flip side, Gross received 7 loans from Sunbelt totaling $21 million himself. This is money laundering. San Joaquino also made loans to other savings and loan through Gross and Southmark funding. These savings and loans included Sunbelt, Independent American, Lincoln, Western, and Vernon. Gross's Southmark funding purchased and sold loan participations to and from a number of savings and loan, including Sunbelt, Lincoln, Western, Vernon, People's Heritage, Federal Savings. They're just exchanging money. People's Heritage People's Heritage was a Kansas savings and loan that lent big money to John Riddle and John Bollisdale in Houston. In January of 1991, Gross was indicted by a federal grand jury in Kansas regarding loan participations that he was involved with at People's Heritage. A Kansas City jury later acquitted him. When the verdict was announced, Gross cried, and three members of the jury cried with him. But his troubles were far from over. In late 1991, a federal grand jury in Dallas indicted him for fraud regarding his San Joaquino deals. One loan that San Joaquino didn't make was the big one for the $200 million at St. Joe Paper Company in the Florida Panhandle. That was the DuPont deal that we're going to talk about in a later chapter. Southmark was all lined up for a joint venture with Mike Atkinson, with the financing to come from San Joaquino. It was spelled out in a sales contract with Lawrence Freeman's company. But the feds put a stop to San Joaquino funding Southmark's commercial real estate ventures, which, when they went under, cost us about $1 billion. San Joaquino was also involved in multi-million-dollar deals with Lincoln Savings, who had at its helm Charles Keating. In 1985, the two institutions swapped more than $123 million in loans, each savings and loan booking a profit off of the loans that they were exchanging. This is money laundering. They're literally just swapping loans and then giving themselves a payday for doing it. The following year, federal regulators made them reverse the transaction because of all of its irregularities. In fact, Lincoln's chairman, Andre Niebling, wrote a letter to Gross on April 25th, 1986, pointing out, "We call you on Tuesday to describe our initial problems with the San Joaquino loan files. Specifically, a very significant number of the files were not included. Payment histories were not available." You know, all the things that you and I have to do, they didn't do any of it. 2 points about the letter. One, for Lincoln, of all places, to consider these loans bad, they had to be very, very bad. 2, why didn't Lincoln inspect the loans prior to making the swap? As for Lincoln's loan transferred to San Joaquino, the Federal Examination Report stated that San Joaquino does not have any loan files or documents in its possession to support any of these transactions. In other transactions between Lincoln and Southmark, a Lincoln subsidiary lent Southmark $64 million to provide working capital to the company for the purchase of a hotel company. In turn, San Joaquino lent $36 million, about half of it, to Charles Keating and Lincoln Partnership on Hotel Pontchartrain in Detroit. San Joaquino later foreclosed on the hotel after Keating's partnership defaulted on the loan. Charles Keating's diaries contains a number of phone calls between Keating and Joseph Gross about the deal. There was a number of savings and a number of loans and sales between San Joaquino and Larry Mizzle's MDC Holdings. San Joaquino made at least 4 loans to MDC totaling $14 million. In 86, Southmark was going to sell J.M. Peters Company, a California home builder, to MDC, but the deal fell through. MDC sold all of the assets that it had in the oil and gas subsidiary to Southmark, and in turn acquired residential property in Virginia with an option to buy more property in California. In September of 88, a Dallas savings and loan regulator wrote a top bank board regulator in Washington about his concerns of the number and volume of loans between MDC and San Joaquino, Lincoln, and Silverado, which of course is where Neil Bush lived, was on the board. MDC first told the author of this book that it had never borrowed any money from Silverado and had never engaged in any deals with Neil Bush, the president's son, who sat on the Silverado board of directors. They lied about both of those statements. Ellison Starnes Jr. was the biggest con man that Texas ever produced, according to the author. In terms of a dollar amount, he easily outdistanced Billy Sol Estes, the friend of LBJ and Morris Jaffe, and on a national scale is right up there with Robert Vesco, who just mysteriously keeps coming up in these conversations. Starnes grew up in a Southern Baptist dominated town. Are you ready for it, Bridget? Waco, Texas.
Every road leads to Waco. Every road.
Waco, Texas produced the biggest fraudster ever.
Purely coincidence.
Purely. His father, Trine, Trine, Starnes Sr., was a noted evangelist with the Church of Christ. Starnes Sr. moved to Houston, where he became a preacher at Lawndale Church of Christ. While Abilene Christian University named part of its Bible studies the Trine Starnes Center for Evangelism. That's weird. You can tell that Starnes Jr. is a preacher's son. Tom Dyer, who was an attorney in Memphis, Tennessee, said, the first time Starnes Jr. apparently strayed from the straight and narrow was in 1973 when he was 28. He put a Dallas company called CIC Cosmetics International Corporation into bankruptcy and was sued by an investor who won about $250,000 judgment against him. He also got in trouble for his involvement with a company called International Cybernetics Corporation. What a name. The next year, he lost 2 fraud judgments in Houston, and then in 76, at 31, he filed for personal bankruptcy, listing $2.4 million in debts with an asset of $6,000. In January 77, Starnes was discharged from bankruptcy and started on a career in real estate. His first job was with San Francisco-based Regency Development. He was also working part-time for a Las Vegas company, Scribe Property Group. At his height in 1984, Starnes controlled 175 companies and real estate partnerships, 50 properties, 500 employees, and an alleged net worth of $222 million. Sounds like he's investing for the CIA to me. He owned a $1 million home in Houston, a $2 million home in Dallas, a $1 million condominium in Vail, Colorado, and a skybox at Texas Stadium to watch the Dallas Cowboys. He and his wife ran up bills of more than $400,000 at a super exclusive Neiman Marcus and once bought a single piece of jewelry worth about $300,000. Then in October 88, Starnes did something almost unheard of. He filed for personal bankruptcy a second time, less than 12 years after his first one. He was able to do it twice. It's unique that a guy can file bankruptcy once, then go out and incur as much debt and do it again. Starnes' second bankruptcy was indeed a thing of great beauty, sure to warm the coldest cynic's heart. The list of creditors took up 70 pages of a total of more than 800 pages in the bankruptcy. There were at least 21 banks and savings and loan, all the way from New Jersey to Florida, to Minnesota to Texas to New Mexico. Starnes and his wife had 34 checking accounts at 22 financial institutions. Starnes listed 48 pending lawsuits against him, and the FDIC had sued Starnes in his bankruptcy filing, claiming that he had defrauded at least 7 failed banks. Starnes cited debts of approximately $103 million, but that figure is very misleading. He didn't list the debt figure for most of his creditors and omitted the figures for his biggest single creditor, $77.5 million, to Silverado Savings in Denver. The Associated Press estimated his total debt to be more like $500 million. He definitely sounds like a CIA money launderer. Starnes even overshadowed debtors in bankruptcies like John Riddle, who had borrowed more than $300 million, and Richard Rossmiller, who had borrowed $200 million from Hill Financial Savings and allegedly had the largest personal bankruptcy in Colorado at around $57 million. Starnes' lifestyle and possessions were on top of a mountain of debt. How is this possible to continue borrowing money with a bankruptcy and all of this fraud? The real answer to Ellison Trine Starnes Jr. lies in the ultimate destination of all that money he borrowed. Did he get it, or was he a front man? Since tracking the money is not possible for everyone without subpoena power, and may not even be possible for those with it, because Starnes had accounts in businesses in the Bahamas and the Isle of Jersey, one of CIA's favorite places to bank. The next clue are the people that he did business with. Who was his partners and associates? What savings and loan did he borrow the money from? According to his 1988 bankruptcy filing, the first bank loan Starnes got after his 77 bankruptcy and still owed money on was a 1978 real estate partnership from none other than Allied Bank, where you have Michener, who is a CIA front guy. 10 years after the loan, Starnes listed a debt of $85,000 still owed to Allied Bank. Starnes listed 2 other Allied banks as creditors. He owed $70,000 in debt from a 1985 corporate real estate acquisition owed to an Allied subsidiary in Katy, Texas. He also owed an unspecified amount to Allied Bank North Central in Dallas. All Michener banks. In his bankruptcy filing, Starnes stated that he had 3 checking accounts at Allied banks and that he received a dividend from Allied bank shares, meaning he owned stock in Allied. The largest debt to a banker savings and loan listed in his personal bankruptcy was $15.6 million to Continental Savings, the same one owned by Carol Kelly, but controlled by mobster Herman Beebe. And that bank was financed by Allied Bank as well. And then that loan was transferred to San Joaquino Savings. In fact, Starnes borrowed more than $25 million from Continental, including $12.7 million to buy a 10-story Marina City office building in Chicago. Art Leeser, the former Savings and Loan Department chief examiner, said he remembered the Marina City loan because there was no appraisal, and the purchase price was less than $12 million. The loan also had a $1 million interest reserve in it. We questioned it. The $25 million plus that Starnes got from Continental made him one of the Savings and Loan's largest borrowers. There was no way he could have done that without an okay by Beebe, the mobster, who was in charge of the bank. Lister says that Starnes was involved in many of those kinds of deals. He was in the Riddle, Corson, Auburn, Woods group. One person close to Riddle and Corson said that Starnes was a John Riddle partner from the get-go. They called him E.T. Starnes had bank accounts and borrowed money from Riddle's Texas National Bank, and at least one of Starnes' Continental loans was run through Investors Title Company owned by Riddle and his law partners. In September of 85, Starnes bought a piece of property in Harris County, which is where Houston is, from Westside National Bank, where Robert Corson and his mother were the largest stockholders. And Robert Corson, of course, is a CIA asset as well. He also showed a debt of $60,000 to Westside in his bankruptcy and had a checking account there. Starnes apparently had some relationship to Riddle and Corson's buddy Mike Atkinson. In Atkinson's Development Group, Inc., files there referenced in E. Trine Starnes Jr. financial statement. And there were several files with his name on it. These references are the same page of a 112-page listing of all of Atkinson's files together, with a reference to Compendium Trust Company in the Isle of Jersey, where mobsters and CIA love to launder their money. A reference to John Riddle in Riddle's Investment Title Company, and a reference to $8.5 million promissory note involving Robert Corson. So this is just massive money laundering, people. Starnes also had a close relationship with West Belt National Bank, where Atkinson was a stockholder, and where Sanson Financial Consultants of the Isle of Jersey. That's an offshore company involved in secreting ill-gotten gains out of savings and loan and money laundering, narco trafficking for the CIA. Starnes was one of the original stockholders in this bank, whose charter was handled by Robert Clark, who goes on to be the U.S. comptroller of the currency. Starnes' West Belt stock was financed by a loan from River Oaks Bank and Trust in Houston. This loan totaled $280,000, indicating that Starnes owned a little over 10% of the bank stock, more than twice the percentage that Atkinson owned. Atkinson also financed his West Bank stock. This bank, in the wealthiest section of Houston, was controlled by Jimmy Lyon. He was a Republican friend of George Bush and Walter Mitchner. He was also a staunch supporter and fundraiser for the Contras. I don't know what just happened to... something just happened to my web browser.
Well, Rumble seems to still be up.
I know, but it just like took my whole web browser and switched it over to McAfee. I don't know why, and now I can't get up the original Brave browser. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So we've got all these guys, George Bush, Walter Mitchner, CIA banks, all around Starnes. Lyon is mentioned several times. Okay, hold on. So the wealthiest section of Houston was controlled by Jimmy Lyon. He is mentioned several times in Oliver North's White House diaries. North wrote Ryan's name in his diary at least 4 times, including one entry regarding a telephone call from Richard Miller, a major Contra fundraiser, on February 1st, 1985. Lyon's name came right after the name Clement Stone. Stone is a Chicago insurance magnate. His son-in-law is president of Texas corporation Avro Aviation that had offices in Houston. And some weird ties. Investigators traced an airplane once owned by Corson and his associates for money laundering trips to Latin America to a company affiliated with Avro Aviation. Stone's son-in-law was also the director of Republic Health Corporation. which is represented in Denver by Norman Brownstein's law firm. Michael DeBakey is another principal in Republic Health. Perhaps Starnes' relationship to Riddle, Corson, Atkinson, and the banks of Michener and Lyon go a little way towards explaining why a bust-out con artist like him was one of the biggest private donors to the Contras. They were using him to launder money to the Contras. Tens of millions of dollars. On January 27th, 1986, Spitz Channel, the late convicted Contra fundraiser, associate of Oliver North, and president of the National Endowment for the Preservation of Liberty, wrote a letter to Starnes. That letter, found in the files of the National Security Archive, says this: "Dear Mr. Starnes, you are cordially invited to a briefing in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. The briefing will be on President Reagan's legislative initiative to support the Nicaraguan freedom fighters, i.e. the Contras. The president is attending. Donald Regan, White House Chief of Staff, Elliott Abrams, Undersecretary of State for Latin America, and Admiral John Poindexter, National Security Advisor, will be conducting the briefing along with me. The success of the president's initiative is absolutely critical to the establishment," this makes me vomit, but I'm going to say it anyway, "of true peace, freedom, and democracy in Nicaragua and the rest of Central America. The defeat of communism in Nicaragua is an urgent issue for the future of American national security. There was no communism in Nicaragua." The letter goes on. "Your attendance and participation is vital to President Reagan's success. I look forward to seeing you at 2:30 p.m. on January 30th, 1986. So, if you money launder for the CIA to fund the Contras, you get an invitation to the White House to see Mr. Reagan." In the chronology, a day-to-day account of the Iran-Contra affair assembled by the National Security Archive, the following description of that meeting. Quote, "President Reagan meets with Spitz Chanel and a small group of donors to Chanel's group, the National Endowment for the Preservation of Liberty, and the American Conservative Trust in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. The meeting begins at 2:30 p.m. with a welcome from Linus Kogelis, Special Assistant to the President for Public Liaison." That can be interpreted as funders for the CIA operation of the Contras. The letter goes on. Remarks from Linda Chavez, Deputy Assistant to the President for Public Liaison, and a Central American overview by Elliott Abrams. At 3:15 p.m., President Reagan addresses the group, followed by a report on Nicaragua by none other than Oliver North. A Chanel fundraiser, Jane McLaughlin, later tells reporters that the price for inclusion in the session with the president was a $30,000 or more contribution to Chanel's group, meaning funding the Contras. A National Endowment for Preservation of Liberty note on the meeting reported the following, quote, "R.R. Ronald Reagan meeting. First contributors, Starnes, $30,000. That $30,000 from Starnes placed him 17th on the NEPL's list of the top 25 contributors. Starnes' contribution was designated for Chanel's Central American Freedom Program, a propaganda campaign to get Congress to pass Reagan's weapons assistance proposal for the Contras. Policymakers can be best reached through an effort that is visible in Washington and the national media," the pamphlet said. Specifically, this propaganda program produced film footage of the fighting in Nicaragua, purportedly to show evidence of Sandinista atrocities, which was actually the Contras, as well as the newspaper opinion articles portraying Nicaragua as a center of terrorism and narco trafficking, which it was neither, unless you count what the Contras were doing, which was terrorism trained and funded by the CIA, and narco trafficking facilitated by the CIA. The largest donor to Chanel's NEPL was Ellen Clayton Garwood, an Austin widow of a former Texas Supreme Court justice and daughter of one of the founders of the great Houston conglomerate, Anderson Clayton. One of the founders, M.D. Anderson, left some of his fortune to a Houston foundation that is run and controlled by the law firm Fulbright and Jaworski. M.D. Anderson, same Anderson. The CIA used M.D. Anderson's foundation as a conduit to launder and funnel money for its purposes, according to Thomas Ross. This was confirmed to me by Pritchard Prouty, a retired Air Force colonel who served as a Pentagon liaison with the CIA in the 50s and 60s and was author of The Secret Team. Although during Starnes' borrowing rampage at savings and loans and his contributions to the Contras, he managed to donate $57,500 to Republican campaigns. These contributions began in February 84 and continued through 87. Almost half of them was directly to the National Republican Senatorial Committee. That's all laundered money. All laundered money from the CIA going directly into the back pockets of senators. On September 30th, 1986, exactly 8 months after Starn made his contributions to the Contra cause, he and his associates received 3 loans from Silverado Savings, totaling $77.5 million. That made Starnes the second largest borrower there. The loans were made according to a $200 million lawsuit filed by the FDIC against the officers and directors, including Neil Bush, the son of George Bush, the vice president at the time. Despite the fact that Silverado had no previous experience with Starnes and that Starn had a history of financial instability. So you just give him $77 million. You do if the CIA tells you that's what they want done. The lawsuit said the D&O, directors and officers, defendants, were willing to make large sums available to Starnes, even for speculative and poorly underwritten projects, in exchange for assistance in temporarily removing bad loans from Silverado's books and concealing the association's declining financial condition. The Silverado loans to Starnes violated federal loan-to-one borrower regulations and prudent lending considerations, and Silverado's own limitations on how much any one person can borrow. The largest of the 3 loans was for almost $31 million for what the feds called orange juice loan. This was a loan on an orange juice processing plant in Fort Pierce, Florida, that was sold from one of Starnes' partnerships to another. So he owns both things. He's just basically laundering the money. The plant was leased to Tree Sweet Products, which had been purchased at the end of 1984 by Starnes. Clinton Owens was his partner in this deal. Starnes was on all sides of this transaction, literally all sides, as one of his companies got almost a $2 million commission for laundering the money. Owens had worked 20 years in the food and beverage business. 6 of those years was for Coca-Cola. And then he quit Coca-Cola. And remember the deal in Belize with Coca-Cola, where they bought 12% of the entire country? That was for Coca-Cola, supposedly, too, to grow oranges in a place where you can't grow oranges. But it just so happens to also have been used for terrorist training camps and drug stops to exchange weapons for drugs on the way between America and the Contras. So, Coca-Cola again. Owens had been a top marketing executive for Houston based Coca Cola Foods, which makes Minute Maid orange juice, under the president of Gene Amoroso. This is the same company. Oh, and he says here the same company that bought 7,000 acres in Belize, not on the coast of Belize, on the interior northwest corner, 12% of the entire country. The federal lawsuit ripped into Silverado's officers and directors for making the orange juice loan. The value of the physical plant and land securing this loan was worth less than the loan amount. The value of the lease was equally suspect. Tree Suite, the leasee, had suffered operating loss for the preceding 18 months. It was in serious financial problems. Silverado had no experience in making this loan. Even its lending officers for the loan conceded that he did not understand the operation at the plant at all. Silverado failed to obtain a security interest in the plant's equipment, meaning it wasn't collateralized. Money laundering. Predictably, and they didn't even have an appraisal in the file. They had no idea how much it was worth. They were just doing what they were told to do. Tree Suite continued to lose money. Less than 1 year after the loan was made, Tree Suite declared bankruptcy, with losses to Silverado being substantial, but they had already laundered the money, and they had already gotten their profit sharing from it, and Starnes had, because again, he was on all sides of that transaction, and they had gotten the tens of millions of dollars that they wanted to go on to fund the Contras. Massive money laundering at our expense. The federal examination report on Silverado stated that although the written appraisal on the property later came in at $31 million, this was $14 million higher than the price Starnes paid the group to acquire the plant. There was in no way it could have increased in value to that amount. The orange juice loan was tied into the second biggest loan at Silverado made to Starnes. It was a $30 million loan for a Starnes-controlled limited partnership to buy Breckenridge Hilton Hotel in Breckenridge, Colorado, in the ski country. The $10 million down payment on the Breckenridge Hilton came from the orange juice loan, according to a federal lawsuit. The $30 million Silverado loan was a renewal of a $27 million loan Silverado made to the previous owner, American Shelter Company, Breckenridge Limited. The first loan, according to the lawsuit, was in trouble. So again, this entity cannot pay its loan. So what do? You get another guy to borrow even more money and give him a loan for the same property that can't pay its existing loan. This is a repeat throughout this entire book. The lawsuit also said that the loan to the Starnes Group quickly went into default. Again. All right. So the total loss on the orange juice loan and Breckenridge Hilton loan was $30 million. The reappraisal of the orange juice plant will likely give rise to significant additional loss recommendation, the fraud suit said. The FDIC claims that Starnes falsified financial statements on the loan application to Silverado for the Breckenridge Hilton and states the hotel loan was calculated to cause willful and malicious injury. The third loan was for $16.5 million secured by a mortgage on 2 office buildings in Colorado Springs and a second mortgage on an office building in Denver. According to the federal lawsuit, the loans were used to refinance existing debt on the Colorado Springs buildings and to purchase a bad loan Silverado held on the Denver building to make their books look better. The suit stated that the security for the Colorado Springs loan was some standard, and that the appraisal used was a year out of date. The loan provided that if a new appraisal reduced the value of the property, the loan would be reduced. A new appraisal did, in fact, indicate a reduced value, but no reduction to the loan was made. Starnes Group defaulted on the Colorado Springs loan, and the lawsuit concluded that Silverado's collateral is worth significantly less than the loan because they used an outdated appraisal. Although Starnes listed Silverado as a creditor in his bankruptcy filing, he stated that the amount of the debt was unknown. It wasn't unknown. Given the connections to Corson, Bush, Michener, and Beebe Circle, it is not too difficult to imagine how he got the loans at Silverado. It is also known that some of the borrowers at Beebe's financed Vernon Savings were sent to Silverado to try to obtain refinancing. Another Beebe associate, BBB and the mobster, who got a big loan from Silverado was Californian Wayne Reeder, Reeder. The Denver Savings and Loan lent Reeder's company $14 million for real estate in Caramillo, California, about 40 miles north of LA. That loan went bad too. Reeder and Beebe probably met at the La Costa Resort, said Beebe's former partner. He believes Reeder got into the insurance business through Herman Beebe. In 1990, Reeder's insurance operations were under federal investigation in Rhode Island, Tennessee, and Arizona. Reeder also was involved in bingo games on an Indian reservation with Dr. John Nichols, a CIA operative who participated in assassination attempts of Fidel Castro. Nichols was in the middle of a bizarre abortive scheme to manufacture night vision goggles and machine guns for the Contras on the Indian reservation where Pinkerton was found manipulating Promise software at the Cabazon Indian Reservation near Palm Springs. All CIA operations, by the way. As for the $200 million federal lawsuit against Silverado officers and directors, it was settled in 1991 for $50 million, which was paid by their liability bond and other insurance. News reports stated that the only bill Neil Bush was stuck with was his $250,000 legal fee. Reportedly, Neil's friends were passing the hat to take care of that, so he got out of it scot-free. After approving loans, money laundering for the CIA, helping his dad fund the Contras as the vice president. The company that did most business with Silverado was Larry Meisel's MDC Holdings, whose loan, sales, and purchases from and to the Denver Savings and Loan totaled $340 million. Although MDC's spokesperson told the author that MDC never borrowed any money from Silverado in a statement submitted to the House and Banking Committee, MDC admitted borrowing some $20 million from Silverado, secured by mortgages, receivables. It also stated that it signed a $33 million note to Silverado to purchase participation certificates. In the congressional statement, the company claimed it had not been a major borrower from the savings and loan and never obtained commercial real estate financing from Silverado Bank. Silverado Bank never loaned money to MDC to purchase property from a third party, they stated. Then 2 sentences later, in the same statement, it contradicted what it had just testified to. Quote, Silverado Banking extended credit to MDC in connection with MDC's purchase of one property from Silverado Electra in 1987. So it had in fact did business with them, even though they just stated they had not. So, in total, MDC admitted to borrowing $53 million after saying they didn't. MDC might not think that they were a major borrower, but there is little doubt that they were a major borrower. Okay. MDC, they were, let's see. There was a major sell by MDC of some $208 million in mortgage loans to Silverado. These mortgage loans were, the company itself admitted in an SEC filing, non-conforming loans, meaning they were bad loans. They bought bad loans. MDC also sold some $600 million in raw land to Silverado and Silverado Electra. On the other side of the ledger, MDC bought $6 million in Silverado's preferred stock in 84 and $14 million in subordinate notes in 1986. So they were all over Silverado. Also, in the statement to the House Banking Committee, MDC whined about losing $20 million investment in Silverado when the savings and loan failed. $20 million compared to the over $300 million they got from them. Whoa. In a March 1st, 1990 statement to the Houston Post and the reporter that wrote this book, Costra said that MDC had never had a business relationship with Neil Bush. Then in March 5th, Costra wrote to the author saying, while the company has never had a business relationship with Neil Bush, so that there will be no confusion, the company states that it sold Mr. Bush a home in Denver, Colorado, in the ordinary course of doing business. This home is in an exclusive Denver neighborhood and costs more than $500,000. It was purchased in the name of Sharon Bush, Neil's wife. That's the house where they had dinner with the guy that shot Reagan the night before it happened. Mitzel is also one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Republican fundraisers in Colorado. In 1986, he was the chairman at the luncheon that raised $1 million for Ronald Reagan. In 89, he organized a luncheon for Colorado Republican senatorial campaign Hank Brown and raised another almost $1 million that drew President Bush's attendance. The single largest borrower at Silverado was Denver developer Bill Walters and his affiliated companies, which borrowed more than $130 million from the savings and loan. In addition, Silverado purchased over $95 million in assets from Walter or Walter-controlled entities. That was in a lawsuit against Silverado officers and directors. In return, Walter bought more than $48 million in Silverado stock and $6 million in Silverado's pool of bad loans, all with money from the loans to and from Silverado. That's money laundering. In its deal with Walters, quote, Silverado compromised its underwriting and appraisal standards, made loan concessions that were unavailable to other borrowers, consistently violated its own internal lending and underwriting practices, and violated federal regulations, unquote. In turn, Walters' purchases of Silverado securities enabled Silverado to artificially inflate its reported capital, fueled continued imprudent growth, and divert improper Silverado funds for personal financial needs of Michael Weiss, the Silverado CEO, and James Murch, their major owner. And this is the same Bill Walters who was discussed previously that in 1970 was involved in the Texas Rent-A-Bank scandal. He and his partner, Richard Rossmiller and William Wall, bought control of East Texas Bank that was part of Herman Beebe, the mobster, and Ben Barnes' Rent-A-Bank circle. Barnes and Beebe then brokered a loan from Mile High Savings, which became Silverado, for Walters Group. So he's another money launderer. Walters grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and played at the University of Kansas football. He became an architect in Denver and hit the big time with Rossmiller and Wall. The partnership split up in the 70s when Wall went to jail for fraud charges. There were whispers that Wall took the rap for some other people. It seems that while Wall was in jail, his wife moved into a brand new home in a very nice neighborhood in Denver. She was well taken care of. Walters and Rossmiller stayed in touch with each other. In 83, Walters Petroleum Limited, owned by Bill Walters, invested $150,000 into a new oil company called JNB Explorations. In exchange for about 50% of the startup capital, Walters got 6% of the profits. One of Walters' banks, Cherry Creek National Bank, extended JNB Explorations a $1.75 million line of credit. The beneficiaries of Walters' benevolence was none other than Neil Bush, who was one of the principals of J&B. Walters then was active in the Republican Party in Colorado and an ardent Reagan Bush man. When George Bush came to Denver during the presidential campaign in the fall of 84, Walters had his grass ripped up and replaced with new grass. He did this because the vice president was coming to his house to visit his son's silent partner and benefactor. Neil Bush's other big backer was real estate developer Kenneth Good, who contributed $10,000 in new capital to J&B Exploration and obtained and maintained the company's line of credits at Cherry Creek National Bank in exchange for 25% of the profit. It was Good who lent Neil the $100,000 to invest in commodities in 1984, which Neil didn't have to pay back if the investment lost money. It did, and he never paid it back. As Neil told the House Banking Committee, the loan sounded fishy. Neil also didn't report it as income on his tax return. At the end of 1986, Good had just about completely taken over Walters as Neil's sugar daddy. This is just crazy. Walters' company still retained a $100,000 promissory note from JNB Exploration, which never got paid back. One of the reasons for this was that Good and Walters had a falling out. It seems that Good had begun an affair with Walters' wife. What the hell? And had even assisted her in evaluating Walters' real estate for dividing it in the divorce. Over the next 3 years, Good provided more than $1 million to sustain Neil's crippling JNB front company, including $120,000 year salary for Neil himself. So he's basically keeping the vice president's son. Good placed young Bush on the board of directors of one of Good's Florida companies, Gulfstream Holding Corporation, and paid him a director's fee of $100,000 a year. What did Good get in return? Well, in 1988 presidential election, he was invited to Houston for the Bush Victory Party. In addition, Good and his affiliated companies did about $77 million worth of business with Silverado, although a good deal of that was before Neil joined the Silverado board in 85. $77 million included the $53 million in loan, $10 million in land sales from Good to Silverado, and Good's purchase of $14 million in Silverado preferred stock. Who is Kenneth Good? The son of a Methodist preacher who grew up in Kansas and earned an MBA from Southern Methodist University in Dallas, where he got his first crack at real estate speculation. In 1969, he formed Good Financial Corporation in Dallas and began buying properties with bank loans. His first big project was a hotel and development by the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. It flopped before the concrete even got poured. After he bombed out in Dallas, Good moved to Denver in 79, where he began wheeling and dealing, buying land and companies, and borrowed money. He cultivated a flamboyant image to attract the bankers. He built the largest, most expensive house in Denver, a 34,000 square foot for $10 million in Cherry Hills. But by 86, the wheels were starting to come off the Denver real estate market. In January of 86, Good bought Gulfstream Land and Development in Plantation, Florida, a real estate development company. And to do so, he borrowed another $250 million. This included 70 million of the usual junk bonds and 90 million from major East Coast banks and the rest from a group of Florida savings and loans. Before the borrowing occurred, Good got two loans totaling 686 million from Jarrett Woods Western Savings in Dallas. These two loans wrapped around and included about $60 million in existing debt and provided Good with $30 million of additional cash. In the savings and loan industry in Texas, there was a game played called the Last Greatest Fool. This was a savings and loan equivalent to musical chairs. The last savings and loan to make an inflated loan on a piece of property after all the swaps and flips could get caught holding the bag and became the last greatest fool. This is money laundering for the CIA people. It is interesting that this expression has been credited to Jarrett Woods, although some say it started with Tyrell Barker, because Western Savings was the biggest last greatest fool in Texas. It was Western that took out Vernon, Continental Savings, and M Bank on several Robert Corson and John Riddle deals. The procedure that Western liked to employ to win that honor was called a wraparound loan. It includes all the previous debt on a piece of property and then adds some of its own. This is what Ken Good did with his Western loan. Another savings and loan that liked to use wraparounds was Mainland Savings. The owners of the company that Good bought, partly with savings and loan money, were dominated by a Canadian group led by none other than Edgar Brofman of Seagram's. Is that crazy?
Oh my gosh. Continue, sorry.
The owners of the company that Good bought was dominated by a Canadian group led by Edgar Brofman. The managing director of Drexel Burnham Lambert was also on the Gulfstream board of directors as well as a New York attorney by Arthur Emil, E-M-I-L. Emil was a partner in a law firm called Surrey and Morse, whose named partner, Walter Surrey, is none other than a former OSS agent and was the founder and director and stockholder of Guillermo Hernandez Carrera's World Finance Corporation, which is the fucking CIA. So Walter Surrey never left. Emil was also a major fundraiser for New York Governor Hugh Carey. He was named in the New York Times story about racketeering with Mafia and Teamsters officials Anthony Scotto. Scotto testified that he had given $75,000 in cash to the campaigns of Carey and then Lieutenant Governor Mario Cuomo. Emil denied receiving any cash in his position as treasurer of the Friends of Governor Carey, the governor's main fundraising committee. Carey testified in Scotto's trial as a character witness for the notorious Mafia guy. Scotto was Mafia. Interestingly, in 1976, Emil was elected co-chair of the Brooklyn Academy of Music, where Scotto was elected vice chairman. In 1977, the New York Times reported that Emil had given his first $50,000 to Carey to help retire the governor's '74 campaign debt. Around this time, Edgar Brofman allegedly made a $350,000 loan to Carey to further help pay off that debt. In a July 5th, 1981 story in the Times, it was announced that Emil could not be running for fundraising operations of Carey's re-election bid if he decided to run again. 2 paragraphs later, it was reported that Evangeline Goteladas Carey had registered to vote as a Democrat in Albany after giving up her independent status in Chicago and marrying Hugh Carey. That's the same Angeline that we talked about in the last chapter that was in all of those crazy real estate deals with her 2 brothers and the Mafia and the CIA. she's marrying the governor of New York. Okay. One of the key figures in the middle of the big Silverado borrowers from Denver was an attorney, Norman Brownstein. Not only did Brownstein was heavily involved with Mitzel and MDC Holdings, his law firm represented Bill Walters' companies. Bill Walters, the guy that we just circled around from Denver, and Ken Good's company, the other guy we just talked about, all CIA Mafia related. Yeah. Okay. So, Norman Brownstein. Brownstein helped Good set up more than 100 trusts and also helped him negotiate the purchase of Gulfstream Land and Development. Good then placed Brownstein on the board of directors along with Neil Bush. Brownstein calls all of these connections coincidences. Brownstein grew up in Denver. He graduated from the University of Colorado at Boulder with a bachelor's degree and later earned a law degree there. By the late 70s and early 80s, his law firm was representing companies controlled by Larry Mitzel, Ken Good, Bill Walters, Charles Keating, the Gulatas, Ohio shopping center magnate Edward Bartolo, who's also associated with the Mafia, and Marvin Davis. Lurking behind Brownstein and looming over all of the Denver crowd is the figure of billionaire oil tycoon Marvin Davis. Davis grew up in New York City, where his father worked in the garment business. The family moved to Denver in '53 and started Davis Oil Company, which became one of the largest wildcat well drillers in the country. In '81, Davis bought 20th Century Fox, and after he failed in his efforts to bring a Major League Baseball team to Denver and failed in his bid for the Denver Post, began moving his operations from Denver to Los Angeles. Later, he sold 20th Century Fox to none other than Rupert Murdoch. Small circle. And in '86, he bought the famous Beverly Hills Hotel from the family of a convicted stock trader, Ivan Boesky. About a year afterwards, Davis sold the Beverly Hills Hotel to the Sultan of Brunei, who had just been revealed as a $10 million donor to Oliver North's enterprise, the Contras. That money eventually got returned to the Sultan after the Oliver North guys put it in the wrong Swiss bank account. Brownstein and Davis apparently first made contact with the Jewish community in Denver. Brownstein set out to get close to ingratiate himself with the richest man in Denver. Brownstein moved into a house in Cherry Hills close to Davis, across University Boulevard from the Cherry Hills Country Club. When Davis began to complain about having to drive all the way around University to get to his house, Davis graciously allowed Brownstein to put an extended driveway through his property. Just like the other two guys in New York living right across the hedgerow from each other. Mafia loves to stay together. In 1979, Brownstein's law firm was representing Davis's Denver bank, Metro National Bank. And Brownstein, Walters, Mitzel, and others were allegedly flying all over in Davis's private jet. One place they liked to go was the Vintage Club near Palm Springs, California, where Davis would reportedly hold court. Maybe they ran into Robert Corson there because he and his partner, Paul Lewis, owned the lot next to the club. Los Angeles publicist Lee Solters, a spokesperson for Davis, said Davis had no relationship with Brownstein. Solters said Davis did business with Brownstein's law firm, not Brownstein himself, which is basically just a lie. Solter also said that Davis had no relationship to Walters and knows Mitzel, but had never done any business with them. Again, bold-faced lies. In the early 1980s, just a couple of years after Neil Bush and his wife Sharon moved to Denver, she started a small cookie business called Cookie Express. Her partner was Mary Davis Zarif, Zarif, the daughter of Marvin Davis. Neil liked to tell reporters, investigators, examiners, and judges that he applied the Smith smell test to determine whether or not someone wanted to do business with him because of who his father was. He said he'd ask himself if the last name were Smith, would he still be getting the offer? Perhaps that's just a coincidence that Sharon Bush's maiden name is Smith. Maybe that's why she forgot to apply the Smith smell test as to why Marvin Davis' daughter went into business with her. Neil eventually got his hand slapped by the Office of Thrift Supervision for not revealing the details of his relationship to Bill Walters and Ken Good in the Silverado Directors. His punishment was that he had agreed to avoid conflicts of interest in the future. During the administrative proceedings in 1990 on the question of whether Neil Bush should be sanctioned, two expert witnesses testified on his behalf that he didn't do anything wrong, and those two people just happened to be Walters and Good. The first expert was Jeffrey Hazard Jr., Sterling law professor at Yale's Law School, and the second was Charles Pickett. Pickett also noted in an earlier chapter on Walter Michener's, in the first chapter of this book, was the former general counsel of Michener's Allied Bank shares before joining Allied Bank in 1983. So again, it's just a round robin of those guys saying, yeah, this guy's good. This guy's good. And they never revealed these relationships to the court. When asked by the government attorneys what information directors should disclose to other directors about their potential conflicts of interest, Pickett said, well, even if the prospective borrower was screwing around with the board member's wife, I don't think that board member had any responsibility to disclose that. He's there to make a business judgment, not a personal one. If one director thinks he knows about a conflict of interest of the other board member, he's not obligated to disclose this at all. Because otherwise, we would have to disclose that we're all working with the CIA and the Mafia, and what good would that do? Holy crap. One of the author's interviews with Walter Michener, Sr., was at a point Michener was adamant about. He claimed that 80% of Allied Bank loans were made to people he didn't know. When I asked him if that was true of 80% of the dollar amount, he didn't respond. So, that's a lot. I'm going to stop right there because that's a lot.
Can I just say, one of these days, I'm going to be able to dig deep enough, and find that Waco connection. That circles back through there too many times to be a coincidence.
Yeah, well, we don't believe in coincidences anymore.
Right. And, boy, it just, it makes you realize how
incestuous.
Why our dollars don't go very far. You know, they have just wrung out our dollars to enrich their own pockets. And it's one big boys club. We ain't in it.
Well, in the musical chair game that he alluded to, we're always the ones that are left without a seat. None of these people, even the ones that go to jail, they've made tens of millions of dollars in their commissions off of doing these deals that they'll spend a couple of years in jail, come out and live the rest of their life as a pawn of this entire operation and be called upon in the future, if necessary, as another pawn. But at the end of the day, to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars, we were the ones that footed the bill for all of this. Stellar, go ahead.
The big bank bailout.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't even the big bank bailout. This is the savings and loan in the 80s. And you can imagine the 2008 was basically the same thing. Stellar, go ahead.
Like you said, it's all just nothing but laundering and stuff like that. And because I live in the laundering capital of the world, or at least the United States, in my personal opinion, a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about, I saw and see. And I put in the bottom Pill, you mentioned the Sultan of Brunei. His property just sold here for over $60 million. I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago. So, yeah, all of these things are all having ties. I pulled in some of those companies you mentioned, pulled up history and stuff like that. They're all coming in and out through here. It's just insane what you're saying. And that's why I'm just like totally shocked.
Shocked, but not shocked.
Yeah, shocked, but not shocked. I mean, knowing that it was, but not realizing that it was also part of the CIA part, that part shocks me. Part of it, I knew it was laundering. We have mobsters here. It was that in the past, whatever. Just had no idea that they were in bed with the government too. That's just what's mind blowing about this whole stuff. It just blows my flipping mind.
Well,
I mean,
and all of the names that people have talked about more recently, like the Brofmans and Seagrams, and how they interplayed with all of the shit that went down with Trump and all of this nefarious stuff. And to see that these same people were involved decades ago in all of the nefarious stuff back then, and they're still walking around doing the same shit today.
Well, also with that being said, you said Seagrams, and if you look into like the families that have the distributors or whatever you call it in these different cities and stuff, like Cindy McCain's family, she was, McKesson, or, whatever she was, her family was a big distributor. And it just seems like a lot of this stuff follows that thing, that whole, which is probably mob. And after Prohibition, they just stuck their people in there. So yeah, never mind.
And not even just the beer distributorships, which are very nefarious. I mean, Bernie Littles lived here, and Bernie Littles, his name goes through all of this stuff. Which my mom worked at Little Food Town, his like 7-Eleven chain, and actually she worked her way up to work in his office. He had a house in one of the springs here that he made available to the ladies that worked in his front office. And to know that you were around all of this shit and had no idea what it was is just so disconcerting. That all of this is like part of the fabric of the United States. And, like you've said, you went to school with some of the people that we've talked about in this book. It's really crazy when you stand back and look at it from a big picture standpoint of just how big this web is of corruption and deceit. And like you said, the role that our government has played in it, that all of this money laundering going on, while the majority of it was going to fund terrorism and against other countries, like in the form of the Contra aid, a lot of it gets siphoned off into the back pockets of campaigns of the politicians that fund it and look the other way. They sit on committees that ask not the right questions when they do have a committee hearing. And that's why I call committee hearings a kabuki dance, because they are there to hide what they are getting through the back door. They are never there to actually discover the truth, which is why this has been perpetuated for so long.
Well, they've been able to perpetuate this mirage, if you want to say, never mind the pun intended too, because it's just been a shell game, just moving assets from here, there, and everywhere. I mean, right now we're watching the downfall of fiat, within the silver markets, because, you got the East and the West fighting on physical and paper. And paper is way below, and it's killing the banks. That's what's so beautiful about what's happening right now. I'm just like jumping up and down because we're literally watching the demise of the deep state and their manipulation, in my personal opinion. And it's a beautiful thing because they're losing power. They can't keep printing it out of nowhere, and the lies and the mirage has to cease at some point. And so, screw them.
Right. Well, I remember with early on, when we first started this project, I see Health Wealth down there. When you guys used to be talking in the pond and other spaces about silver and all of the underpinnings, and I went and did the research into all of the stuff you were talking about, because I honestly never heard anybody talking about the silver market the way you guys did. And my husband and I bought a lot of silver, and every day, he's one of those day traders anyway, so he's always looking at the market, and he's like totally blown away. He's looking at me every time one of those, packages would get delivered. He's like, "Did you buy more?" And now he's like grinning from ear to ear every time he turns on his whatever the show he watches on TV and looks at the silver prices, because he can't believe it. And I honestly owe that to you guys, just sitting and listening in some of your spaces, and having the ability to go do the research into what you guys were talking about. So go ahead, Stellar.
Yeah, the paper silver, East and West, the war is real. Yes, it's a beautiful thing. The paper contracts are way high. It's all manipulated, and they have to pay for it. They broke the 6-7 rule. This is breaking the SEC. They manipulate so much stuff, and the powers within the currency, and like doing what they're doing is terrible. And if you look at the markets, especially like these futures and stuff, I mean, everything, gold, silver, platinum, oil, everything, because that's where value is, not in paper. And that's where the hold on the banking system is going away, and they are bleeding money. JP Morgan moved their stuff offshore back over Thanksgiving. There was a reason for that. The Shanghai market is out of China. There are no reserves left. What Trump did with calling it, a strategic asset, like, what he did with it, now that opens up. There's a lot of stuff going on underneath, besides what's going on, and the physical part of it is gone. It's a national security if there isn't silver to build these different facilities and stuff like that. So no, it's dire. And what he's done to protect our infrastructure here, that man and whoever else thought of these things, and thank God above, thank you God, because this is a beautiful plan coming together.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. And you just have to laugh every time people focus on this shiny object over here, that doesn't see all of the other stuff happening. It's quite crazy, actually.
Well, why wouldn't they flip it? Just like they did our government. I mean, why wouldn't they flip it? Silver is more rare than gold. Silver is a byproduct to other mining things. To make silver to be what we have it as, it takes a lot of time to separate the byproducts out of it, because again, it is not something that is very easy. It's talked about in the Bible, and don't forget, silver kills the vampires and werewolves.
And werewolves was the beginning of Operation Gladio. So now we just came full circle. Health Wealth, go ahead.
Hello.
Hey.
Happy holidays, man. Happy New Year. Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. I just wanted to come up and just tell you how much I appreciate you. And I'm so sorry I haven't been in your rooms lately, but I do post them every time I see you. But I actually listened today, and you are definitely a blessing. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, I loved listening to you guys a couple of years ago and talking about all of the different financial stuff going on. And it was just kind of fortuitous, if you will, that we all kind of came together, and when we did, because obviously I was just getting started, and didn't know any of the depth of nefariousness that had gone on. And so we've definitely been on this journey together. So.
Yes, ma'am. I'm thankful. Trust me, I'm so thankful for a lot of you guys on this app, and Miss Stella as well. Like, she's such a blessing. You're a blessing. Alpha, Patriot. Like, I learned from so many, from Vegas, golf, all of you. It's such a blessing. I just want to thank you for what you do, because you definitely help us all out, man. I appreciate you, because I feel like I'm armed with knowledge. when I hear the goofies talking, I can pull up a lot of stuff that you put out there. So
Yep.
thank you, man. You're a blessing.
You're welcome.
And I want to give you this last bit of advice for you and your husband, especially now. I know that he likes to day trade and stuff. Just look into the Great Eight, please. When it comes to crypto, they're gonna have the Great Eight, like the stock market had the Great Seven. So
The Great Eight.
The Great Eight, man. Yes, it's XRP, XLM, XDC, QNT, ADA, Algorand, HBAR, and IOTA. So that's your Great Eight. Like how the stock market got the Great Seven.
Yep.
That's what you want to do, and I guarantee you, your husband will definitely be jumping up and down.
All right. Well, I'm gonna DM you because I didn't write those down. So
I got you. I'll send it to you.
All right.
Thank you so much for the mic.
And Colonel Towner, I'll send you the information. It's the ISO 20022. The information protocols that have come into play. Basel III Endgame. That talks about banking of international settlements and how they settle all of these informations through the ISO 20022. The native tokens that Health is talking about are like the XRPs, XDCs. You heard me talk about those forever now. So
right.
That's what the new system is being built on and stuff like that. And it's all the validators. It's peer-to-peer, no more centralization and things like that. We're going into a new system of decentralized, hence the stable coins here in the United States.
Got it. I did look into the ISO things when you guys first talked about them a couple of years ago. It's quite amazing what is going on behind the scenes and that most people have no clue that it's even happening. Adam, go ahead.
Hey, Colonel. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I love your space as always, and, your Rumble channel is great. Anybody that's not following already, definitely go to that Rumble channel and hit that follow button. Colonel's amazing, and she's a blessing and breaks a lot of good stuff down, gives a lot of historical background, and yeah, where would we be without her? Honestly. Thank you so much. You're
sure,
a blessing.
Adam, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well. We're learning together. I'm telling you, I'm blown away just as often as you guys are. It's just amazing. And I think the thing that strikes me the most as I read through this, like I posted earlier a 3-part series, and it's Peter Dale Scott writing the foreword to the book. I don't have it in here in front of me, about the heroin coup. And as you read through his words, you are struck by the similarities of what is going on today with what went on 40 years ago. And the one thing after I posted that, and I was kind of basically going through it with my husband, the one thing that he, his observation, if you will, kind of as the sounding board is, isn't that exactly what's going on right now? And I'm like, yes, it is. And that to me is the most amazing part of this. And it's like he said, you could not do all that was done without every facet of the United States government having corrupt people in it. You cannot have an international narcotic trafficking, chemical weapons transportation around the world without the complicity of governments. There's no way. And you have seen in this time span of 1 year the difference that it can make if one government, one of the Western governments, any one of them could have done this, but the fact that they never did it, and that the only drug war was taking out the competition to their system in any real respect, just if they can control an entire facet. Like if you can eliminate the Corsican mafia from drug trafficking, you can eliminate the whole damn thing. The fact that they chose not to makes every element of government complicit. The DEA, the ATF. You can't ship millions of weapons out of the United States without complicity of the ATF. You just can't. You can't ship tons, hundreds of tons every year of chemical weapons in the form of narcotics into the United States without the complicity of the CIA, the FBI, the DEA, and all of the elements of government, to include Congress. You can't. It's physically impossible for this thing to have gone on. And of course, we know opium before World War II was still a thing. But I'm saying from World War II forward, all of tons upon tons upon tons, hundreds of tons of narcotics shipped around the globe. And we're supposed to believe that no one was able to stop that? Well, they showed us repeatedly that they can stop the competition they don't control. And if they're controlling what's left, they could stop it at any time. They just refused to do it. And they're all complicit in it. Stellar, go ahead.
So if you cut off their power source, which is the money, and track it, and you flip it so that way they don't have it anymore, that's how we win. And that's what I feel is happening right now because of all of these different things that are going on. Because it seems like everybody sells out for money and power. And if you get rid of the money or how they're paying them, that gets rid of their power, don't you think?
Well, I think that's the whole reason that's why I think, and people don't understand the significance of what happened with the Promise software. You had some ingenious guy, Hamilton, who created Inslaw, the company, that developed a software that would immediately identify money laundering. That was done 40 years ago. And what happened to him? They destroyed him. They stole his software for them to use to monitor other people's money laundering so they could go cut out the competition, and used basically, I know it's not the right term, but a backdoor capability to hide their own money laundering. And they controlled the money worldwide. Every illicit transaction, it was tracked through the SWIFT system. It was visible to all of them who was money laundering and who wasn't, both to Mossad. We know Robert Maxwell sold the Promise software all over the world, but the CIA did it as well. And the fact that they had the capability in the 1980s to stop all of that and chose instead to use that system to continue the operations, identify their peer competitors, and eliminate them tells you all you need to know. And it reinforces what you just said, Stellar. Bridget, go ahead.
Just to add on to that, and it's not just that, but it was also the child trafficking and the child porn on Facebook. You saw how easily they could shut down any anti-COVID, anti-jab information. I mean, lightning fast. But they couldn't find all these sexual predators.
Right.
Or all these child traffickers.
Right. Yeah. And that implies a complicity to facilitate that, just like on the drugs. And it's true with all three spokes: the human trafficking, the drug trafficking, and the weapons trafficking that we identified 3 years ago as the three spokes that kept this wheel going down the road, with blackmail as the grease. Because every one of those elements produce blackmailable complicity in the system. Stellar, go ahead.
And funny how you mentioned that. And now we understand the ties that Epstein had with MIT and the coders. and what Bitcoin ended up turning out to be. And it's open source, and they thought they could hide their money and not be found. But everything's open source, and everything can be tracked and found, period. And so that's what's so beautiful about the system we're going into. You can't hide it anymore.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see these senators and congressmen, they're sweating when they see these cocaine boats getting blown up. You know, like it's like their money is being attacked. You know, and even the crown as well. You know,
That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's entertaining, honestly.
It's amazing to watch. Oh my God, you can't take our illegal aliens out of here. Oh my God, you can't attack the drug supply. Oh my God, you can't do that.
You can't find the fraud that we commit in our states. Please, no.
Yeah. And every single one of them. And then the latest thing I just saw before we started was that they've got illegal aliens suing the federal government. I'm like, how the fuck can that happen? We had no standing as citizens to address the election fraud. How does illegal aliens have standing in federal court?
What do you have to say in regards to the ruling by the Supreme Court for Trump versus Illinois? Basically it's I think it was Roberts. One of his statements was that, you know, basically he could use the military more than
that was Kavanaugh.
National Guard. Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, green lighting him for the Insurrection Act.
Yes.
Which he could have already done, but he wants to walk it, I think, for the public. Here you go. Here's the Supreme Court saying it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do it. I could have done it already, but I'm going to show the people first.
So I think
that's why I think he's walking it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. So if the whole game theory to this exercise is to not have a civil war, to not give the left the basis to invoke what they do everywhere else, and that's violence in the streets. If you build the foundation with rebar and quality concrete, you are going to be able to build the house that will never fall. And I think that as lengthy as it is for most of us who understand what's coming, the process is very important. And now he has the document in hand to say that the only way that I can make America safe again is by invoking the Insurrection Act. And while at the same time, you have all of these, and I don't believe this is coincidental, you have all of these people posting these horrific crimes of, you know, people that have had 72 incidences, 72 arrests, and have never seen a day in jail. All of this stuff to me is coordinated to show that you have habitual violent criminals roaming the streets at the direction of sitting politicians in cities, in counties, and in states that refuse to protect the citizens. And that is the basis for the Insurrection Act. And now, having been given the Supreme Court's basically green lighting that you can send in the Marines under the Insurrection Act and forget the National Guard. And when that occurs, and I do believe it will, because you cannot allow the systemic fraud and the illegal aliens, and, you know, you start shipping people out by the plane load. But you had to have the infrastructure. That's why they just commissioned all of those JAG officers as immigration court officers. You need this 1 year prep time in order to set that foundation so that you avoid the civil instability that the CIA is so notorious for instigating in order to stop what has to happen. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Go ahead.
Real quick, one last thing. Somebody had mentioned martial law, and I'm like, I don't believe that's the route he wants to go. I know George Bush did martial law, which includes citizens in the scope. I don't believe that's the route he wants to go. And I think it's an insurrection act. What do you think about that, Colonel?
I agree. It's a staged effect. If the martial law would be the absolute last thing, and if there were people in the streets that began rioting, then you can bet that would happen. But I believe that they're trying to do everything to prevent that. But I don't put any limits on that authority based on the circumstances that may
Yeah, it's
arise.
not off the table. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, because we know things like we've studied. We've studied the Albert Einstein Institute. They teach people, and there are pockets of people in the United States using Gladio style terrorist tactics that know exactly when they're activated what to do in order to instigate things like the Maidan coup. And you don't want that to be on the table initially. It is the option of last resort. But I think the way it's being built out, that there's a way to avoid that. And I think that's what we're watching. But it's definitely on the table. Health, go ahead.
Oh no, real quick, I just wanted to add on the fact about the silver and the reason why silver is definitely a good investment for everybody here. I want you to understand that when it comes to those chips and NVIDIA and AI, silver played a big part in those chips. So it's definitely a good investment. And silver plays a major part in AI moving on, and when it comes to the data centers and a lot. So definitely get you some silver, everybody. Just wanted to say
Even
that.
at the price it is today, if you understand the massive amount of shorts that were processed on silver, it's still a very good buy currently. Not an investment advice, because I'm not an investment counselor, but I've not stopped buying it, even though the prices have, went up a lot, because I still think it's very undervalued based on stuff that I read. And I suggest everybody go research it. Don't use this as an advice forum, because it is not. I'm telling you from my own personal experience. When I did the research, when I heard these guys talking about it, probably 2.5 years ago now, it was amazing what I found out. And that information is out there available. If you read, I know there's a lot of people that specialize in silver research on X. If you just do a search, read all of the material and make the best decision for your family. Stellar, go ahead.
Okay, there's 3 things happening with the silver right now. It's a trifecta. Silver is going up a lot because the dollar isn't worth anything. It's dropping. There's the East and the West, physical to the paper. And number 3, like everyone's saying, the usages for it, and what Donald Trump changed it to probably about a month or 2. I'll look for it. But those 3 factors are what's going on with silver. The 2 important things why it's going up faster is because of what Donald Trump deemed it as, also their strategic reserve. It's also a national security not to have the silver here for these things that they're building, what you guys are all talking about. So there's a trifecta happening with silver.
So AP Jonas over on Rumble said the Asian guy, that's the name of his YouTube channel, Asian guy, who posts daily silver videos. So if you want to check it out, you can, that's a source right there. In addition to all of the numerous people that post about it on X. I'm not endorsing his take on it. I'm just saying that that's what AP Jonas is sharing with us. So Anyway, all right.
That's why I wanted to bring up the 3 things that were going on with it.
Yeah.
It's just one part of it. There's those other 2. Also, the most important ones, I follow Donald Trump and what he's doing and what he's putting in for strategic reserves, why he's putting them in there, and then what he deems silver, gold as, and I believe copper was deemed that too. But this is regarding national security, and if that's what it takes, whatever he says, I listen to what he says. He has not steered me wrong yet.
Yeah, copper's a big deal for lots of reasons. My husband always watches copper because he's an electrician. He's an electrical contractor. Copper is a very big indicator of the economy overall. And I don't know what he uses to formulate his opinions, but he has watched copper as long as I've known him. Obviously, it affected his bottom line, so he's watched it for decades. But he's big into copper. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, in the pill I posted, basically, if you look at copper, like pennies, and certain years, if you go back, I think 82 and beyond that, you'll find it has different content.
Right.
So save your pennies, check out which ones match up to what years, and save those. The other ones are like probably worth less.
Right.
And don't forget nickels. Nickels have a high content of copper in them as well. Yes. And nickel will be deemed also as something that's a reserve as well.
Yep, definitely look into those as well, and any coinage. But also, I did post, what was it? I did post a poll. What you think silver will end on, Pacific time, midnight today. But also like and repost the space, guys. This is always a great space. If you're in here listening, definitely do so, and check out the Rumble channel for Colonel Towner. What's the Rumble channel name?
The Colonel's Corner.
Colonel's Corner. So definitely check that out. Like and repost that as well. You can repost on Rumble now, which is pretty cool.
Thank you for saying that. I always forget to say that. I really suck at being my own marketing person. But yeah, I'm really bad at that. Stellar, go ahead.
I was also going to say, you guys can go to the bank and buy half dollars and dollars and stuff like that, the coin ones. A lot of time, not all the time, but quite a few times you're going to find real silver in there, the constitutional one, and just look at that. Look up the year to see what the amount of silver is in it. Same with quarters and dimes as well. If you guys want pennies, even though they're not making anymore, the banks still have them. You can go buy pennies from them, 50 cents for 50 of those pennies. So that's another way of doing things as well, and separate them by the year because the contents may be different.
Yep, that's a good advice. All right. Well, that's another crazy show. I thought we were probably going to get done with this book by this week, but obviously with the holidays. And I really screwed off last weekend just because my daughter was coming from Texas and we had so much stuff in preparation for. But I do intend to have a couple of shows over the weekend. They will be earlier in the morning, like around 8 o'clock. So we could do a couple of these chapters because I'd really like with the beginning of the new year to move on to a new book. So I want to make sure that we get through this, but I will try to give you guys as much heads up as I can. But if I don't post a new schedule, I do have quite a few things going on next week. One I'm really looking forward to. Let me pull that up real quick. I think you guys I'm so excited about the show. Probably more so than I have been about a lot of other ones. But if you guys aren't following him, you definitely need to. Let's see. I'm gonna try to find it. What the heck? My computer is not working over there. Where did he go? It is dadgummit. What did I do with it? I guess I'm gonna have to find it. I'll post about it later. I don't want to take you guys' time. Oh, here it is. It's Sunday, the 4th of January. He's called on X the Radical Republican. We've been DMing back and forth. We have a lot of common thoughts about the world. So I'm really excited about doing his podcast. It's going to be 8 o'clock on Sunday night, the 4th of January. As soon as I get a link or whatever, I will post it for you guys. I will repost it on X when he schedules it and post it on his page. But I think you guys are going to really like that one. It's going to be quite interesting. But anyway, that's it for now. I think that War Hamster's now back in the saddle, so we're going to be able to continue that. And as far as I know, we are going to have the Alpha Warrior show on Wednesday. He got called to cooking duty for Christmas, so he wasn't available last Wednesday to do it, which is just as good because we had so much going on here as well. But we do anticipate having one next Wednesday night. And I have some interesting content that I want to share with him. So that's it for now. I'll try to get the schedule out for this weekend as quickly as I can after we get off here. So with that being said, Stellar, go ahead.
Thank you for teaching us about Operation Gladio. You international syndicate people, you're going down. All of you CIA Bushies and whatever, you guys are going down. Thank you for teaching us. And manifestation for the new year. We're going to watch them go down. Thank you, Colonel Tanner, for all of your assistance and our Gladio glasses for seeing truth through all of this fog.
You are more than welcome. And I cannot tell you how... I know this sounds crazy, but I truly believe 2026 is going to be a crazy year for all of the reasons that you just outlined. I feel it. And I think all hell's going to break loose in a good way. So, and I'm here for it. So anyway, you guys have a nice evening. I will see you tomorrow sometime, and I will post that on my X space. But right now, I'm thinking it's 8 o'clock tomorrow, 8 o'clock Sunday morning, and we'll do 2 shows this weekend, and then hopefully be able to close out the book at the beginning of next week so we can move on. Yes, 2026, a kick-ass year. AP Jonas, I agree with you 100%. All right, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for all you speakers coming up. You guys have a nice evening. Talk to you tomorrow. See you guys.